starting in 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Mark. Just a friendly reminder to please put your devices on silent or mute or off.
I can't see you. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June Recreational Astronomy Night meeting of the RASC Toronto Centre. My name is Paul Markov. I'll be your host for this evening. And we are live at the Ontario Science Centre, and I'm guessing, I don't know, 15, 20 people in attendance. I didn't count prior to starting the meeting. And to our viewers that are online, a reminder that, of course, we have restarted the meetings here at the Science Centre, so if you can, please join us next month. For those who cannot be here, for sure, rest assured that we will continue to broadcast the meetings over YouTube. Let's see. You know that I'm always on the lookout for presentations. Fortunately, the next meeting, July, is full. I'm happy about that, but we do have openings for the August 2nd and later meetings. And as a reminder, our meetings are not happening on the first Wednesday of each month. Tonight we have three presentations as usual. We have Chris Vaughan talking to us remotely about the sky this month. Denis Gray will give us an update on the Northeast Astronomy Forum that took place in late April, I believe. And then we have Arushi Nath, and she'll give us an update on the DART mission about whether the asteroid Dimorphos was successfully moved or not out of its orbit. And also she'll touch on the briefings of the Planetary Defense Conference of this past, I guess, the year in 2023. And then we have a bit of a longer announcement by Ed Trace, and we'll call him at the end of the presentations. Tom Luton will wrap up the meeting with the usual announcements. We should be done around 9:30. If you're watching us online and you have a question, please enter it in the YouTube chat box, and Ennio will ask the question on your behalf to the speaker. For in-room questions, please wait until I come around with a microphone. Otherwise, people online won't be able to hear you. And a quick show of hands, do we have anybody here for the first time? Yeah. We do. Okay, very good. Welcome. And for those of you online who are watching us or joining us for the first time, let us know through the chat box as well. I forgot to mention our team, our AV team that makes these meetings possible online, and that's made up of Andrew and Betty Reed, Ward Legros, Enya Cholucci, and Reza Mohammed. Thank you all for making these meetings possible for us. All right, so let's get the meeting started with Chris and the sky this month.
Thank you, Paul, and hello, everyone, from beautiful downtown smoky Thornhill, Ontario, which is just north of the Toronto city limits. And I'm going to cover the events of the sky from tonight into a month hence on July 5th, the date of our next Recreational Astronomy night meeting. So let's get started here. So first up, I've got a bit of news in space exploration. Launches have become so commonplace nowadays. I think Andy mentioned the same thing last month when he did the sky this month. But I did pick out a few notables to take a look at. First up, sometimes in the near future, we've got a launch of the Peregrine commercial lunar lander for a company called Astrobotic. It's going to do a 40-day period of Earth orbiting and then cruise to the moon. After a bit of orbiting of the moon, it's going to land near the Groothuizen domes in Sinus Viscatatus, which is the Bay of Stickiness. And then it'll operate for about 192 hours. Now, the Bay of Stickiness was a new one to me, so I thought I'd take a look at where that is on the moon, and I'll just pull this up for a second here. It's a little embayment here to the south of Sinus Iridum on the edge of Mare Imbrium. And, you know, the main features on the moon are named after, you know, weather systems and moods of humans and so on. So I'm going to assume that what they really mean is the Bay of Mugginess, like sticky in terms of mugginess. All right, what else have we got? Also, sometime in July, we've got a SpaceX Falcon Heavy launch from Kennedy Space Center of an unspecified military payload. And then a biggie, around July 21st, we've got an Atlas V rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida, with Boeing's Starliner, the first crewed test flight to the ISS. And last up, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida, is going to launch something called the Euclid mission. That's going to cruise to the Sun-Earth L2 Lagrange point. And its purpose is to make a 3D map of the universe by observing billions of galaxies out to 10 billion light years away across a swath of more than a third of the sky. So that's one to keep an eye out for as well. All right, let's get into some observing. It's a neat picture here from Bill Longo of star trails and fireflies. So if you're interested in contributing to the monitoring of light pollution in the night sky, as many of us are, then you can participate in the Globe at Night a program, which allows you to every month, there's an observing program where they select a particular constellation or two for you to head outside and look up at and just measure or gauge how many of the stars you're able to see from your location, and then submit your observations. So the next campaign is from June 9th to 18th. So we're coming up on that one, and it'll be focusing on the constellation of Boötes and Hercules. Now we're at that time of the year where the sky is getting dark later and later. The days are long, the nights are short. This graph at the top of my screen here is giving you the yearly balance between nighttime in the bottom half and daytime in the top half. And you can see where we are at the red line. So tonight we had sunrise. Today we had sunrise at 5:30 in the morning and sunset at 8:56 for a total of 15 hours and 20 minutes of daylight. And since our next meeting is going to sort of fall on the opposite side of the summer June solstice, which is coming up on June 21st in the morning, then that means that on July 5th, our next meeting, the sunrise and sunsets will be almost the same. And we've still got about 15 hours and 19 minutes of daylight. Then at least we're back into the slightly shorter days time of the year. Also in the interim till the next meeting, we've got the Earth reaching aphelion of 1.521 million kilometers from the sun, which occurs on July 6th. That's coming up as well. Now, those of us that are keen to look at the things that are dim at night, we need the sky as dark as we can get it. And what we wait for is the sun to finish its business and get truly deeply below the horizon for the sky to get truly dark. And that typically happens at the end of astronomical twilight, when the sun is greater than 18 degrees below the horizon. The sky is as dark as it's going to get sun-wise. And then after a period of hours, then the sun starts to rise again. And so we get a period of astronomical twilight in the pre-dawn sky as well. And again, the sad news is that at this time of the year, we're only getting 4 hours of that truly dark time that a lot of us need for imaging and dim objects. And that's going to be about the same a month from now. So we've got to get through this period before we can get past and get to those longer nights and shorter days. But can we observe at all? A lot of us have been grappling with this problem of forest fire, wildfire smoke that's been covering the sky and bringing significant amounts to it across southern Ontario and down into the eastern USA. This is actually a map of the airnow.gov fire and smoke map. You can see here the colored symbols represent the sort of sky quality or degree of smokiness in the sky. You can see here's where we are, this little blue dot that I'm circling with my mouse, kind of right in the thick of things. So we're getting this plume of smoke that's being transported right across southern Ontario and into the eastern seaboard of the US. So that's giving us a problem. Now, obviously, the smoke is going to severely reduce the transparency of the atmosphere. It's all but eliminating our views and hampering our imaging of anything that's faint, the deep sky objects like galaxies and nebulae. We might still be okay at times with the brightest open star clusters, brighter globular clusters. Bright double stars are a great target. They're no problem. We're going to still be able to see the moon, usually, of course. And most of the bright planets will be observable, but perhaps not some of their fainter aspects. So, you might not see as many details on the moon or on the planets, and you may not pick up as many of their moons as well. So the tip is to check the smoke forecast before you plan an observing session. Sure, the forecast may be for sunny skies, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to achieve what you're wanting to get to look at when you get out there. Now, you can find that fire and smoke map at this link I've got at the top here, fire.airgov.now. There's also a clear dark sky clock for the CAO in the second line. That's the link in the second line. And then the astrospheric.com or the Astrospheric app, which I'm showing here, also has smoke data. And I thought what I'd do is briefly just share you kind of a live look at astrospheric.com. And this is a tab that you can open up. So if I close this tab here, you can see there's a layers tab above the forecast. So each hour of the next several days is indicated by a colored square. The darker the blue, the better for astronomy. And you can see here we've got a mix of cloud and clear over the next few days. But we've also got the second row, which is transparency of the sky. And white means terrible. You know, gray and white mean terrible. We finally get a little bit of blue, perhaps on Thursday, Friday, that sort of a thing. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And again, if you go into this website, click on the layers and choose smoke, then that gives you your smoke map. And you can actually animate this. Let's see if this will run. There we go. So it gives sort of a sense of how things are going to be going over the next little while. Now, we've got problems viewing the dim object in the night sky. We've also got limited darkness at night. So why not make lemonade out of it and focus on something else like a closer star instead of the distant stars? We've got solar cycle 25 are still building in strength. There are typically lots of sunspots that have been visible through white light filtered telescopes and eclipse glasses. And occasionally the Earth-directed corona mass ejections are producing aurora. And if you want to keep tabs on what's going on the sun, a great place to go is spaceweather.com. On the left-hand side of that page, you're going to see a little thumbnail showing the current sun. And this is when you click on that, it enlarges into an HMI image. And that's what this one is showing for this afternoon. And this active region, so the sunspots are given numbers, and we call them active regions. This number 3321 in the just below the equator of the sun here, I'm thinking that might be visible through eclipse glasses. So if anybody gets a chance to head out and take a look, please let us know if that worked for you. I might do that tomorrow if it's sunny. All right, what about the moon? We've still got the moon up in the sky. We've got the third quarter moon coming up on Saturday. So that usually triggers our dark sky period, and that's going to run until a day or two after the new moon on June 18th. We've also got, following that, the first quarter moon around June 26th, and then the full buck or thunder or hay moon will occur on July 3rd, and that's going to be only 34 hours before perigee, and that gives us the first of 3 supermoons for the summer months. Supermoons tend to come in groups of 2 or 3, and so this is the first of those. And of course, the best dark sky observing period will be the period after third quarter through a little bit after new moon. And then if you're interested in looking at the moon itself, then the period that you want is after noon to about the full moon period. So what's up on the moon in the next little while? I mentioned that on June 22nd, that's when the young crescent moon will return to the western sky after sunset. You can take a look and see if you can see the Earth shine phenomenon. That's the sunlight reflected off the Earth and back onto the sun, back onto the moon. Around June 26th, the lunar straight wall will be illuminated next to the lunar terminator. And in that same night, if you head north on the moon, you can pick up the curved mountain ranges that accompany or surround the Mare Imbrium. Those are the Alps and the Apennine Mountains. And then as the moon gets a little bit fuller towards the end of the month, we can start picking up the Aristarchus Plateau. This is a fantastic piece of the moon to look at up close, especially on a night when the seeing is good. You've got this neat sinuous rill and the Cobra Head, Valles Schroederi and the Cobra Head. So that's a great piece of the moon to explore and enjoy. And then as the moon gets quite full towards the 1st to the 4th of July, we can start looking at things like the terraces on Copernicus, little dark haloed craters that accompany Copernicus, and a lot of the lunar ray systems. So that's a great thing to take a look for. If you're interested in getting lots of information about the moon, I recommend this resource of the NASA Dial a Moon page. You can request an image of the moon for any hour of any day of the year. This is the link here. And when you click on that image, then you can download a very high res, large size GIF of the moon with annotations on it. And there's even a version of it for an inverted view of the moon in case you want it at the eyepiece of a Newtonian telescope, something like that. All right, there's a comet up in the sky that some of us might want to chase down, Comet C/2023 E1 Atlas. It's currently observable in the northern sky, which makes it up for many hours of the night. It's currently around magnitude 10.5, but it is predicted to reach magnitude 9 in early July. Here's a picture that was taken a week or two ago, little green comet in the sky. It's going to be tracking. So this is NGC 4236 in Draco, and it's going to be tracking every night from tonight's meeting through next month's meeting in the direction of the Little Dipper's handle. And you can see that on the sort of 25th, 26th of the month, it's going to pass close to this naked eye star for Ursa Minoris, I should say, and maybe enable you to help pick up the comet on that night. In terms of the International Space Station, we actually don't have any this week, but we will begin to get some more in a few weeks from now, most of which will return in the evening around 11 p.m. And we'll get some pre-dawn passes resuming for the last week of June. Here's a few of them that I noted. Very, very bright, -3 passes, but these are all in the pre-dawn sky. So I'm not going to set the alarm for the space station, but somebody might want to. You want to find when they're happening for where you are, you can always go to heavens-above.com and type in your location and get a list of them. And I also tabulate them for the GTA area in my astronomy skylights every week. Now, the moon is also on July 1st. The nearly full moon is going to occult the bright magnitude 3 star, Alniat, in Scorpius. It's actually the star that's just to the right or a little bit to the west of the bright star Antares. And it is a close little double star. So what will happen is that in the GTA, the dark limb of the moon will cover that pair of stars at 12:49 a.m. Eastern time. And then the star will emerge from the bright opposite limb of the moon near the crater Vendelinus, which you can look up on a moon map to sort of get the coordinates. And that'll let you focus your telescope on the right section of the moon's limb by sort of referencing that quadrant of the moon. That'll reappear at 1:58 a.m. As shown here, and it really should take 1 or 2 seconds for each of the two stars to wink in sight. So it's going to be a neat event to look for, if you don't mind staying up a little bit late. A couple of occultations, asteroidal occultations. So on the 11th of June, so next Sunday morning at 3:30 in the morning, the asteroid Burnhamia, which is not Robert Burnham, it's another Burnham. It's going to occult a star, and there'll be a dip of 3.1 magnitudes for 3.5 seconds, and they'll be at an altitude or an elevation of about 28 degrees above the horizon. And you can see that the center line of the predicted track goes right almost through the CAO, certainly through north of Barrie and Orillia up through Minden, so cottage country. The blue lines represent the predicted path. The red lines represent sort of 1 sigma of error. And where this is in the sky it's near the head of Pisces, the circlet of the constellation Pisces, Western Pisces. And that night, you're also going to have Neptune in the neighborhood, and the waning crescent moon will be in the same patch of sky. And then on July 1st at 1:54 a.m., we have another asteroidal occultation of the asteroid Alcatos, occulting a star. That'll be a dip of 5 magnitudes for 11.6 seconds. They'll be higher in the sky, about 69 degrees. You can see this track also goes through sort of that Barrie Lake Simcoe area, come down through Georgian Bay and head down towards Cobourg, Ontario, and then cross the lake and head down. And again, lots of rascals or Toronto Centre members will be in the path of these two events. So maybe somebody will get out there and take a look. Where that one is going to be right here in Aquarius. And you can see it's close to the globular cluster Messier 2. That sort of gives you a context to what patch of sky you're looking for. Now, as I mentioned, may have some impaired viewing of our dimmer objects, but so why not take a look at some double stars? And I've been working through the Astronomical League's binocular double star program, and there's some really neat gems in there and some little surprises that you can pick up on. And they're actually pretty good for also working on while twilight is deepening. So you don't have to wait till it's fully dark before you can start working on some of these. So I'll point out where some of these are in Stellarium here in a minute or two. But one of the great ones is Adaphora or Zeta Leonis. You've got a bright magnitude 3.4 and 5.9 pale yellow pair, widely split. So very easy to see in binoculars, but they'll also be great in a telescope. But the field is very, very cool. This is actually my background here. This is that same star. All kinds of little bright stars in the neighborhood that make it a really delightful look. Then you've got the star Cor Caroli, which is famous as a telescope double, but I've seen reports that people can split it in binoculars, so I'm curious to know if any of us are able to do that. It's a nice white and gold pair, nice contrast in brightness, 19.6 arc seconds apart, easily split in a telescope, but yeah, give it a go with your binoculars as well. And then not far from Cor Caroli, there's a neat trio, 15, 16, and 17 Canum Venaticorum. That's a trio of white stars, magnitudes between 5.9 and 7.1 or 2, 1.5. And that's a little patch that's 13 and a half arc minutes across. And then why not take a look at the three leaps of the Gazelle? And I'll just show you where those are. They're a big asterism in southern Ursa Major. So let me just pop in a stellarium and come back here and show you where a few of these are. Oh, let's get it a little bit later. Here we go. All right. Stellarium's a little bit sluggish. So you've got Ursa Major, you've got the Big Dipper here, the Big Bear, and then the Big Bear's toes represent the three leaps of the Gazelle. A pair of stars about a degree apart, another pair about a degree apart, and another pair about a degree apart. These are each about 13 degrees apart, representing kind of the leaps of a gazelle or antelope through the grass. In terms of the double stars I mentioned, let's go look at a couple here. So Adaphora is the star at the back of the sickle of Leo. So above Algeba. Algeba is also a double star, but probably not binoculars. And then here's our Cor Caroli in Canis Venatici. It's one of the two stars in that constellation. And if I just zoom in a little bit here, you can see the trio of 15, 16, 17 CVN to take a look at as well. All right, let's go back and take a look at some of the planets. So we'll just go back to this evening sky. So we've still got Mars and Venus occupying the evening sky. Venus has recently finished the end of its elongation away from the sun, so it's going to be starting to start its return leg sunward now. At the same time, we've got Mars in the same vicinity. They're about a fist's width apart right now, but over the next number of evenings, you'll see that they're going to approach to within about 6 degrees or so, about your palm's width at arm's length. At the same time, they're both descending gradually sunward. So we're really only going to have Venus for another few weeks or a month or so before it gets a bit sort of tangled in the trees. In the other side of the sky, if you're staying up late, obviously tonight, that's where the moon's hanging out, but we've also got the planet Saturn, which is rising about 2 a.m. or so now. It's going to be accompanied by Jupiter. So there's Jupiter just peeking above the treetops here by about 4:30 in the morning. And they're going to be occupying the pre-dawn sky, post-midnight sky for quite some time to come. I think eventually, but in a month or so from now, towards the late into July, we're going to start seeing them rise before midnight. So they will return to our evening telescope viewing opportunity when we get deeper into the summer months. And then Mercury is lurking in here. There's Mercury. You may have just seen it. Where is its dot? Mercury is not easy to see at the moment. The ecliptic is very tilted over, but it is there. And Mercury is not alone. The planet Uranus is down there, tucked in close to it. And so that's not something that's going to be easy for us. If we've got viewers, though, that are tuning in from more tropical latitudes, if you live at a southerly latitude or even closer to the equator, then you've got a much better chance of seeing Mercury, where the ecliptic will be much more upright. Now, a couple of things that we can keep an eye out for in terms of what the moon is going to meet up with. We've got the moon meeting up with Saturn on June 9th and 10th. So that'll be a nice little pass if you're up at that time of the night. A couple of nights later, on the 14th of June, we've got a nice old crescent moon posing with Jupiter in the morning sky. And I'll just advance the date here a little bit. Get past our new moon period, and then we'll have the moon reappear in the western sky after sunset. And here's that kind of earth shine period I mentioned earlier on. Nice photo op coming up when we've got a trio of the moon, Mars, and Venus in the western sky on around the 21st and 22nd. And that's basically our good stuff for the moon for the month. Now, in terms of what you might want to look at in the dark of the moon, I'll just point out a few of my favorites in the sky. First up, we've got the Blade and Pearl, or the mini sombrero galaxy. This is a terrific little galaxy that's tucked in close to the northern foot of Virgo. Easy to find, don't need a lot of effort to find it. Just bring up the DSO imagery here. Stellarium's running a little slow. And I'll see if I can bring up the deep sky image for you here. There we go. So Stephen O'Meara, the famous American astronomer author, he akins this to the stellar core of the galaxy as a pearl balanced on the blade of the halo of the galaxy. So that's kind of where that comes from. Next up, we're going to hop up into Canis Venatici again. And remember, we've got our Cor Caroli and we've got our Chara, the other end of the stick. And if you aim your finder off the end of Chara, you can find the Cocoon Galaxy. Charles Ennis of RAS president let me know the other day that in South Africa, they call this the rhino and calf, this pair of objects. This is actually reported to be bright enough to see in 7 by 50 binoculars, really any size of a telescope if your sky is dark and not too smoky. But if you've got a bigger aperture telescope or you want to take an image, you can start looking for the stream of stars that have gravitationally deformed the end of the galaxy. And then at the other end, back up near Cor Caroli and that trio of stars that I mentioned for binoculars, we've got a nice little sort of 2-for-1 here of the Waterbug Galaxy, NGC 5033, and Caldwell 29, or NGC 5005. These are also reported to be, the cores at least, are also reported to be bright enough for binoculars and really any size of a telescope. You know, they're not part of the Messier list, but they're actually definitely worthy of a look if you've sort of finished up with the Messiers and you want to take a look. And they actually will share the field of view of a low power eyepiece. And last up, let's head into the northern sky and go into Draco and head to the Cat's Eye Nebula. And the way you can find this one is look for these medium bright stars within the crook of the neck of Draco the Dragon. And if you've got an oxygen 3 filter, you can use that one to brighten up the planetary nebula. So this is NGC 6543. It's about 5,300 light years away. And what I think is fascinating about this one is that it's got this terrific internal structure to it. And that may be due to the fact that the star that expired to produce the planetary nebula was part of a binary system. And so that extra degree of rotation inside of it has produced this sort of internal complex inner shell. But something that you may not be aware is that there's an extensive outer envelope to this object, which would certainly be picked up in a long-term image, long exposure image, or perhaps with a very big scope under dark skies. In fact, one section of it is bright enough to have been designated its own IC catalog number, IC 4677. It was just a piece of the sort of brighter piece of that halo. So just kind of to summarize here, I'll just bring this up so everyone can see this. And here's to sort of a synopsis of what we can look for in the month. As I mentioned, view the sun with safely with filters. We've got our moonless periods we've got, and also don't forget, you've got the lunar occultation towards the beginning of July, and expect that comet to brighten up as well. And that's it.
Few times a year. I'll hit you up again in a few months. All right, so let's see if there are any questions. Let's begin in the room, so maybe give a chance to the guys online to submit their questions. We have a question here. I think there's a microphone there. Here? Oh, here? Okay. And we'll bring it over to... Is it? Yeah.
It's worth noting as a comment that right now the moon's tilt is a little more extreme than the ecliptic, which we could see when you showed like the full moon, it was well south of the ecliptic. So the next full moon and just before it, even if you wait until it's as high as it gets at whatever on the meridian, it will be remarkably low, lower than you would see in any other time.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Any other questions here, Dennis?
Actually, following up a little bit on Ed's comment there, I was just going to note that at the first quarter phase of the moon, when things are, when it's usually most interesting to look at the moon is extremely high this time of year. Like it's basically following the ecliptic, and it's at a very high phase, which means you would have pretty good chance of having good seeing. So it's a better than usual opportunity to do imaging and binocular viewing of the moon right now.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, in terms of making lemonade out of the smoke conditions and the late nights, I did a lot of the RASC Observe the Moon binoculars program and telescope program in dusk, in twilight. So that's a great, nice and high, good seeing conditions. Thanks, Dennis.
Any more questions in the room? If not, we'll go to any questions online. Aniel? No? Shaking his head. Okay, good. So we'll carry on with our speakers, and Dennis Gray will give us an update on the Northeast Astronomy Forum.
Okay. Okay, just a little quick sound check. Sound good? Yep, excellent. Okay, thanks very much, Paul, as usual, for working with these events. I was at NEAF again this year, the 32nd annual edition of it at Rockland Community College in New York. This event is held in a giant gymnasium for a large community college, and it's held in a place called Suffern, which is kind of outside of New York City, about a half an hour drive if the traffic is bad, about an hour drive if the traffic is typical. And this animation here gives you a little bit of an idea of what you get to see when you go there, and I'll tell you a little bit about my adventure this most recent opportunity. So what's a NEAF? Sort of talked a little bit about it, but I mean, it's one of the biggest astronomy exhibitions going. There is a similar sort of thing in California, but it's not at the same scale. And it's been sponsored by the Rockland Astronomy Club. I think they're kind of making a lot of money on this. They have a lot of passionate volunteers that show up, and they have a lot of good equipment. So I think it's a very beneficial relationship they have with their local astronomy community there. It started originally with Teleview, who happened to be located in Suffern, New York, and they had their blems on sale, and they kind of started this forum or this trade show way back when, 32 years ago, and it's still a big. They're still a very big participant in this. Obviously, because it's a sort of a gear show, it's all about the equipment for most people, but they've really expanded the enjoyment factor, if you will, by really bringing in very high quality presentations. I was very impressed in the past few times I've been there, the kinds of talks I've heard and seen. And also there's a Northeast Astro Imaging Conference, a NEAC of some kind, which happens the 2 days before the conference opens up. So if you're interested in astrophotography and you want to get in depth how to do it kinds of lessons and have an opportunity to meet and greet with experienced astro imagers, that's available as well. So that's a NEAF. And this is a picture of the exhibition hall that you can see. So you can see kind of goes back like several hundred feet in each direction. There's the scoreboard, and just working through all of that takes the better part of a day if you want to do it thoroughly. NEAC conference is separate registration, happens like on Thursday and Friday, so like $125 or so to take in that conference, but you get the NEAF admission thrown in. And then on Friday they basically do vendor setup and they bring everything in, and then the trade show is Saturday and Sunday. Opens at 9, goes till 5 on Saturday, closes a little earlier on Sunday, and there's presentations and solar observing as well. So I was there, and we had some H-alpha as well as some white light telescopes put on a display by Daystar. So that was kind of cool. Saw some nice prominences and so forth, and that was also part of the adventure. So getting there is part of the fun. So this is kind of the journey that you're looking at. So it's a long drive, about 7 hours or so. I have a new grandniece, so I dropped into Kingston to visit. So I went around the other horn of the lake and went down differently, but it basically is the same thing. It's a bit of a drive. There's an option that does work, and I've done it before through taking Amtrak and a taxi. You can make it work, but certainly driving down is easier. And this year I tried the camping option. So they said there's free camping on site. This is me camping on site by myself. Well, there was one other camper there, but we were kind of lonely. The parking lot filled up quite nicely the next day, but not very many people took the camping option. But I sure appreciated the fact that I didn't have to pay for a night's lodging in New York. But you can just see the building where NEAF is being held there in the background. And this is my little camping trailer and my hangout spot here. So it was a pleasant night in mid-spring. Enjoyed it. Now, this is not my first rodeo here. I went down with a bunch of folks from the Toronto Centre. You may recognize some of these people here, and some of our friends from the Toronto Centre. We drove down together in 2010. That was our first opportunity to take it in. We had a good experience, came away with some loot. I went back again in 2014. In this case, I met some rascals from Montreal. So they were gracious enough to let me get a picture of them, and we had a nice chat about things at their center and our center and so forth while we were visiting there. This 2023 edition, it's the first in-person opportunity we've had since the pandemic. So I was registered, I think, for the 2020 show, which was canceled due to the pandemic, and then canceled again in 2021, canceled again in 2022. They held over my admission, so I was able to finally take advantage of it. Certainly, what I've noticed when I was down there was a lot more emphasis on astrophotography. First year I was there were a lot of eyepieces everywhere and for sale and so forth. There were still eyepieces for sale, but much more emphasis on astrophotography. The other thing I noticed was that there was there were fewer vendors who were selling on site versus just showing their stuff. And I talked to a few of them, and they said, it was just getting the whole sales tax in New York thing arranged and sorted out was just a little bit beyond what they could do. So they basically brought 1 or 2 samples and showed them and told you where to buy them and so forth. There were a few dealers that were selling things there, but I would say there was like 3 or 4 of them, not the way it was in past years where you could buy a lot more stuff. Here you could see a lot of stuff, you could try a lot of stuff, but you couldn't actually buy as much. So this was the view of the show floor this year. So I came in, early, and I had a chance to just sort of scan the show floor and see what's there. That's the big Celestron booth there in the middle with the orange tables there, and this is the ZWO or booth here with their mounts and telescopes and equipment, and it goes all the way back to the end of the lobby here. It felt more open, it felt less crowded than it did in prior years, and I think they just spread things out a little bit, but that's sort of to be expected, I think, given where we're at. So that was the first thing I noticed, and then this is the show floor in 2014. So it was a little bit more crowded back then, but still very well, a lot of participation, lots of things to see. One of the things that they emphasized was Pro-Am related programs. There was a whole sort of subsidiary program going on in some of the presentation rooms where they were talking about Pro-Am collaboration. So just, I know it's a little small, but they had a presentation from IOTA with Ted Blank. They had the Lowell Observatory folks there from Flagstaff talking about their Pro-Am programs. Rick Feinberg from formerly of Sky and Telescope was talking, and so on. So, I mean, there was a lot of interesting opportunities to meet and greet with people, to get more involved with the hobby and to find out more interesting things as you're going along. So one of the first vendors I noticed there was ZWO, and they were selling the mount that I presented a couple of months ago, the AM5, and they were showing that off, but then they were showing this cheaper one, the AM3, and I was going, where were you when I was buying my mount? That was my first thought, because it's more or less the same mount with a slightly smaller load capacity. They also updated their wireless controller, and they made it new, and they added a few things to it. They also had this interesting class of telescope, which is a sort of the phone-enabled scope imaging system, C-Star S50. And it's one of these scopes, and there's a couple of other ones where there is no eyepiece. It's just a fully automated camera-based thing that talks to your phone and shows you what it's looking at on your phone through an app. So I thought that was interesting. They're experimenting with that kind of new class of telescope equipment, if you will. One of the other emphases I saw there was eclipse planning for 2023, 2024. I know we'll have some announcements about that as we go through. So both Lunt and Daystar were there selling their H-alpha telescopes and binoculars. So H-alpha binoculars were available. And then Celestron, I thought this was quite cool. They were selling solar eclipse kits. So you can buy a small one or a little one, and it comes with your glasses, and it comes with a bino glasses and maps and other things like that for about $60. So I think they're going to sell a lot of those. There was some comment at the show about, because this eclipse is going to be so big and so popular, that you should probably get your eclipse equipment in order soon, because there may be a bit of a run on things, there may be shortages. So take that for what it's worth. That was told to me by somebody who was trying to sell me something, so, you know. One of the cool things about going to something like this, of course, is free things. You get free things. So there was a guy there who was selling a free magazine. It's an online magazine, practicalastrophotography.com. So apparently if you go to that website, you can get a free magazine. Why not try it? Sky and Telescope was handing out free copies of their April 2023 issue. We also picked up keychain stickers. See, I got one right here. Moon calendars, bags, all kinds of stuff. So there's free things to be had, which is kind of cool. I also saw our friends from IOTA. So they had their promotional booth there. They had some fascinating equipment that went bloop while they were there, and they were showing how they do timing, talking about their exhibitions. They had a whole rundown on their program, and I got to meet some of the principals involved, David and Joan Dunham, as well as some of their recent president of the organization. So that was kind of nice. Joan and David are kind of legendary in the community. They're both in their 80s, so it's kind of like one of those opportunities you have to meet somebody who's like you're impressed with, and it's always nice to do that. Another group that I bumped into was the folks behind Astrophotography Tool. Now, these guys are from Slovakia, and this fellow here is the developer, and this is his lovely and talented spouse, and they got matching very orange t-shirts, and they were just there to, you know, sort of meet and greet, and it looked like it was their first time ever trying to promote their software. They have really great software for really cheap, like €6 a year for their software. And they basically handed out a card and said, here you go, 2 free months added to your subscription. And I was able to take advantage of it, and it worked, and it was kind of cool. Again, to kind of meet the people behind some of the stuff that we use every day. This is the one place you can do that easily. I saw this cool demonstration of first contact polymer, which is actually available from Ontario Telescope. I've seen it for sale on their website, but basically you apply this red goop on your optics, like you smear it on, you wait it to dry, and then you peel it off. And apparently that's supposed to clean your mirrors to the atomic level. And it just looks so weird and scary, but cool, you know? Photoniccleaning.com, you can get this too. One of the other things that's cool about going to a show like this, of course, you get to see the inventor class. So this is a guy here who was doing a show and tell on his roll-off observatory automation. So I'll just run that here. So this is his roof coming back, and the big claim to fame here was, we've seen this before, but what he was saying was that he has this running on 12 volts, which I thought was pretty cool, because every other system I've ever seen has always needed more oomph than that. Here's the guy.
And we have a flat light system. One of the things about all of our devices, they are made for observatories. They have wired network interfaces on all of them and built-in web servers. So they don't need a host PC to run. They are still ASCOM compatible, NE compatible, but they also have the built.
Yep. So he was very proud of it, and obviously they're in startup mode, and it was interesting that their notion of a roll-off roof was a cabin for an astrophotography type of rig. Like, it's not like our CAO, GBO public observatory kind of class, but obviously kind of small, but still cool. The other thing was really big telescopes. So this one here was really big, and I was really impressed by this mount.
16-inch scope, 20-inch scope, and this mount just throws it around.
Just look at that mount. That telescope weighs 150 pounds if it weighs an ounce, and this mount just goes, whoop, no big deal.
And this is usually.
So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's one of the things like that you can have, is these sort of, you know, you're drawn to the things that move, right? So the things that move are always attracting attention. Another piece of equipment which I saw was from Prima Luce in Italy, and I was wondering why, what this was and how it was working. And then someone explained to me that the part here rotates around so that you have basically an equatorial mount with no meridian flip. So you can run this thing the whole night long, and because of the way that this mount is structured, it will never ever need to have a meridian flip. So it's another variation, an interesting variation on sort of the German equatorial mount. I didn't see anything else quite like it, and Prima Luce sells a number of other astrophotography add-ons and doodads. It's kind of cool. And then I met some rascals too. So some of you will recall former RESC board member and general man about town from the Hamilton Center, Colin Haig, who works for Diffraction Limited and also sells S-Big cameras. We talked a lot about the S-Big camera industry and so on. And he was telling me some stories out of school where you know, the issues we have with supply chain, and he was explaining what one of the issues they were having is there's one little chip they need for their cameras, and then some supplier said, oh yeah, we got lots of those, no problem. He built the rest of the camera, and then the supplier said, oh no, we don't have any of those. What? So he's got like 200 cameras sitting on a shelf in a warehouse waiting for a chip that is apparently no longer in production. So this kind of stuff is a challenge all the time. They have a new camera, integrated camera system with filter built in, complete sort of system. It's pretty cool, and always fun to chat with Colin. And then we bumped into this guy too. All of us will probably remember good old Charles Darrow. He was working the Prima Luce booth. He even got a free golf shirt from them and everything because he uses their products and he enjoys it, and he had a bit of a relationship with the owner, and he said, well, if you're coming to NEAF, sure, I'll come down and help out. So he drove down from Boston and helped out on the booth there. It was good to see him, and he even set me up with some Leaf playoff tickets. Okay, anyway, moving right along. And the other cool thing, of course, was the presentations. We had some excellent speakers there talking about various topics. I thought it was kind of cool. They had a sort of a 7-foot high scale model Saturn V just hanging on there on the stage, and it was good. The only problem was this theater was super heated. It was like, this is so interesting. I can barely stay awake, but this is so interesting because it was literally like 25 or 27 degrees in there. It was super close, and that is something I would hope they can fix for next year. So why might you want to go to this next year? So certainly it's a great opportunity to do a little bit of hardware comparison shopping. I can't think of many other places where you can sort of go run over here and see this guy, and run over here and see that guy, and run over there and see that guy, and compare and contrast different mounts and so forth. What I found was kind of cool was just to meet and greet with some of the vendors and the owners and the inventors that are involved with doing things. Some fascinating discussions with those people. The presentations are really good, and you never know who you're going to bump into. I got some good deals on some equipment there and spare parts and so forth. I didn't actually come away buying that much. I basically bought a book and a few little spare parts. But you know, certainly, what else are you going to do for astronomy in April? It's raining, right? So you may as well go. And you will see really, really big telescopes like this, which is always nice. So the dates for 2024 are not yet set. There's a big solar eclipse coming, so they're going to have to work around that. And they also have to work around the school schedule because they need school to be finished. But I think they don't want the summer term started because they need the full use of that gymnasium in order to hold the event. So I haven't seen what they're doing with that yet. We'll find out soon. And that's my report from NEAF 2023. Let me know if there's any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Dennis. Great presentation and report. Appreciate that. Any questions in the room? Yes, right here.
Hello. Hi, my name is Atul, and I read about there's a company based in US called Vaughan, V-A-O-N-I-S.
Okay.
And they made observational station. It's like a telescope, I think, the way you explained.
Oh yeah,
You
the white one. Right?
Correct, yeah, Vespera.
Okay.
Any experience with that or any demonstration about that?
They had that for sale. I think they're around $2,000 or so. And there's an app that goes with it and so on. So it's very similar to that ZWO one I was referring to. I didn't really take a close look at it because it's not something that's appealing to me. But I did see it there, and if you had been there, you could have certainly met the people that were selling it for sure.
Okay, and I'm told there's a question online, Enya. Oh, but you need the mic. That's...
So we have 2 points from Eric Bricks. First one, he says, I was at NEAF this year, but I didn't see you there, Dennis. And his second point is, you know, Dennis is right about the difference between opportunities to buy versus making connections and agreeing to do a deal after we all go home. That's mostly what I did.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. There were several companies Eric, that we're offering. If you use this code and go to our website right now, you will get 15% off or something like that. So there were certainly deals like that to be had. So if you saw something there and you decided you wanted to do it, you could certainly get them to do something like that. They just couldn't actually sell stuff at the actual show itself.
Any more questions? No? I have one myself.
Sure.
Was there a swap table?
No, no, there's no swap table.
Okay, never
That's
been.
too
right?
bad. That's too bad, but it would be nice if there was one.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Okay.
All right,
so,
now I have one other thing I just wanted to slip in here. I wanted to introduce us to the new and improved RASC Toronto website. James Lau and I of the IT committee have been working on getting our website upgraded to current technology. This is now up and running and working, and we have all of the stuff that we have there now. And it's essentially, we've been working on getting the website to bring it up to current standards. It's what last had its major refresh in, I think, 2014, 2015. So behind the scenes, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. This website is much more responsive, so you see how the menu goes hamburger-like there, and things stack up and collapse properly, so it should look better on mobile devices. And we also have brought over all of our content, and we've been working on developing things. Now, this Sunday we're proposing to have a little hackathon where we're going to go in and update the content on the website, test everything we can, make notes so that we can get any defects or remaining issues resolved before we turn this over and update our current website. So if anybody's interested in helping with that, all you need to be able to do is to use a computer and click on a browser and make some observations and notes. Please let me know. You can approach me at the meeting if you're here, and if anyone would like to put forward their information, I will put my email out there and you can let me know, because we would love to have some additional participation in terms of this project, making sure that it's going to work for everyone once it's up and running. All right, so thank you very much, everyone, and I will wrap up with that.
Thank you, Dennis, for the presentation and all the work for the new website.
All right.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to go to fun facts for a moment while we set up our next speaker here. We'll take a moment to swap out laptops. I'd like to welcome back Arushi Nath, who was here some time ago, and she'll give us an update on the DART mission on the asteroid Dimorphos, whether NASA successfully moved its orbit or not, and also an update on the Planetary Defense Conference of 2023. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So hello everyone, my name's Arushi and I'm a grade 8 student from Toronto. It's great to be presenting here in person after so many years. Like the last time I came here was probably 2018 or 2019. And today I'll be talking about planetary defense. In particular, I'll be talking about how I detected the physical properties of asteroid Dimorphos to determine the success of NASA's DART mission. And then afterwards, the briefings about the conference I attended, Planetary Defense Conference. So let me start off by saying asteroid collision risks are real, and they do happen sometimes. Like millions of years ago, the Chicxulub asteroid caused the extinction of dinosaurs. And just a bit more recently, a few months ago in November of 2022, a 1 meter asteroid impacted the Earth, and it actually flew right past Toronto, right past the CN Tower, if you got a chance to see it, and it landed harmlessly in Lake Ontario. But this showed that asteroid collision risks are real. And currently, hundreds of near-Earth asteroids keep on being discovered every month. And this is outpacing their analysis by professional astronomers. And this is a big problem because smaller sized asteroids, about 20 to 30 meters, have an impact probability every 50 to 100 years. So we must be prepared for them. And if one of these asteroids were on collision course with the Earth, we would need to know their physical properties like their size, their strength, are they monolithic, are they rubble-based, and if they have a moonlet, to be able to deflect it. And I'm sure lots of you guys heard about the DART mission. So last year in September of 2022, the DART mission, as the first planetary defense test mission, it deflected an asteroid Dimorphos to test this deflection technique, a kinetic impactor. And so today I'll be talking first about an algorithm that I created to measure the effectiveness of this asteroid deflection. And I had 3 main project goals while making this algorithm. First, I wanted to create the algorithm so that citizen scientists and backyard astronomers can find the physical properties of asteroids using just simple school-level maths and open data. My second objective was to apply my algorithm to the Dimorphos binary asteroid system to basically see the physical properties of the Dimorphos and see how they changed after the impact, which brings me to my third goal of measuring the effectiveness of NASA's DART mission. So why did I do this project? Well, first of all, I really love maths and astronomy. And I've been really passionate about these subjects for a long time. Actually, it's RAS that brought me into astronomy, so thank you. And another reason is, as I said, I love maths. And I also love coding, and I've been coding in Python for the last couple of years, so this was also a great opportunity for me to build up my knowledge in this subject. So to observe the Dimorphos binary asteroid system, I made use of a node of robotic telescopes located all around the world. And robotic telescopes are simply telescopes which you can control remotely from your home and tell them exactly what part of the sky you want to observe, what filters you want to use, how long do you want exposure time to be, and so on. So this was a great opportunity for me to learn how to create observing plans to observe this asteroid and which were the best days in the month to observe the asteroid based on the phases of the moon. And I think it was a great learning opportunity too. So in whole, I wrote telescope proposals to 4 robotic telescopes in the world in places like Australia, Canada, and Chile. And this gave me over 55 hours of observations of this asteroid. So I took observations spaced into 3 different sections: before the DART impact, during the DART impact, and after the DART impact. So this was a great way for me to measure the baseline physical properties of the asteroid, see how they changed during and after the impact. So now came the fun part, actually creating the algorithm. So the first step to do here was that I had to take my images from the nearby telescopes and find all known stars and known asteroids in my image. So to do this, I made use of open datasets. I used NASA's Gaia database to find known stars, and I used European Space Agency's Gaia database to find known stars, my mistake, and NASA's Horizon database to find known asteroids. So this allowed me to find stars in my image and also pinpoint the exact location of the Dimorphos asteroid. So now brings me to my second step. Now that I knew where the asteroid was located, I wanted to measure its brightness. And to do so, I created apertures of different sizes around the asteroid. I created an inner aperture to measure the pixel brightness of the asteroid, and I also created an outer annulus. And here the outer annulus was helpful because it allowed me to measure the background brightness in my image. And then I could subtract that from the brightness of the asteroid to get its actual total pixel brightness value. But finding the actual correct aperture size is a pretty hard task, and it must be done really accurately. Because if the aperture size is too small, it will not cover the full brightness of the asteroid. If it's too big, it'll cover too much background noise and might lead to inaccurate results. So I ended up using slope and median functions to find the right aperture size to use. And then I converted pixel brightness into instrument magnitude with a simple log formula. The next step was to find comparison stars in my image. But why would I need to do this? This is because my observations were spaced a very long time, sometimes over 4 hours. And this means that observing conditions such as weather and air mass could and did change. So to account for this, it was very helpful to know that all celestial objects in my image are affected by these scene conditions equally, which meant if I looked at an object in the image with a known brightness, in this case stars, and if I saw how their instrument magnitude changed over time, I could see the effects of weather. And then I could apply these effects to the asteroid's instrument magnitude to get its computed magnitude, which is basically its magnitude without any weather conditions. So for each observation, I selected about 4 to 7 comparison stars, and they had to follow a set of criteria, of course. One thing is they couldn't be variable stars, otherwise their brightness would change, and that would ruin the whole point. Another thing is that their computed magnitude had to be constant over time, and they had to be of similar size to the asteroid. And this is helpful because I was using the same aperture sizes for both the asteroid and the comparison stars, which meant that make both objects fit nicely, they had to be of similar size. The next step is this wasn't enough to measure just measuring the computed magnitude, because asteroid magnitude can change for several other reasons, especially because of its movement around the sun, because asteroids are always orbiting. So as they orbit, their distance from the sun and the distance from the Earth is changing, which would cause changes in their brightness. So to account for these, I applied offsets to the brightness of the asteroid to assume its brightness was taken as if it was 1 astronomical unit from the Earth, 1 astronomical unit from the Sun, and at a 0 phase angle. So this basically allowed me to get the absolute magnitude of the asteroid over time and allowed me to produce light curves of the asteroid. And these light curves were individual light curves of different nights whose brightness changed only because of the physical properties of the asteroid. So now that I had this, I wanted to find all I could about the asteroids using these light curves. And the first thing to look at is their rotation period. Because asteroids are normally very small, which means they don't have enough gravitational pull to make them spherical. So as they rotate, different sides reflect light differently, causing 2 maximas and 2 minimas in their light curves. And this can be detectable with my algorithm. So I was able to use my algorithm to create composite light curves of the asteroid. So what I did there is basically I combined my individual light curves from different nights to different periodicities. And for each one, as I combined them, I also calculated the root mean square error of my observations from their curve fit. And I was looking for the curve where all my observations would be very close together. So this meant I was looking for the smallest root mean square error. So once I found the light curve with the smallest root mean square error, I knew this was my rotation period. But I was looking at the Dimorphos binary system, which means it has 2 asteroids, so I could also look at their mutual orbital period. So to go about this, I first subtracted the rotation period from the main light curve, and then repeated a similar process of finding composites to find the mutual orbital period of Dimorphos. So here we go into results. So I have 7 results. First, I was able to measure the absolute magnitude of the asteroid to be 18.03, and I was able to measure its size to be 820 meters. So I did this simply by looking at the absolute magnitude and then performing some calculations. Second, I looked at the rotation period of Dimorphos and found it to be 2.26 hours with an amplitude of 0.1. And I found that the rotation period did not change after the impact, but nor was any changes expected. So again, as you can see in these figures here, I was combining my observations to light curves of different periods. You can see 3.4 hours, 4.63 hours, and for each period, I was creating their curve fit and finding the root mean square error of the points from the curve fit. And you can see, if you look at the bottom figure here, you can see the letter D, and that's the smallest root mean square error I was able to find, and that's what gave me the 2.26 hours. So third, I again measured the mutual orbital period of Denis and Dimorphos before and after the impact. And before the impact, I found their mutual orbital period to be 11 hours and 55 minutes, and it actually reduced by 35 minutes after the impact. So I was able to measure this change in the mutual orbital period. Fourth, I also performed a few other calculations during the impact, because so what I did is I looked at the brightness of the asteroid Dimorphos before and after the impact. And as you can see in the top figure here, every couple of days I was calculating the magnitude and comparing it to the magnitude of the asteroid if there had been no DART impact. And if you can see, right after 26 September, when DART impacted the asteroid, there was a 1.2 magnitude increase in the brightness of the system. And this is actually caused by all of the debris around the asteroid reflecting sunlight. And this debris also led to a 20,000 kilometer long ejecta tail. So to find the ejecta tail, I took observations of the asteroid a few days after the impact and measured the tail length in pixel counts. And after that, knowing the distance from me and the asteroid, I was able to find how long the ejecta tail was in kilometers. So I was also able to find the strength of both asteroids, because I did this using both the size of the asteroid as well as rotation period. Because asteroids who rotate very fast with a period that's smaller than 2.2 hours, they must be monolithic. Otherwise, they would fly apart because of such a fast speed. Also, if asteroids are very big, with a size in diameter above 150 meters, they are very likely to be rubble-based. And this is because asteroids are normally impacted by other asteroids, causing them to fragment. So knowing the size of the Dimorphos to be 820 meters, so very big, and knowing the period to be 2.26 hours, I was able to determine that the Dimorphos was rubble-based. And I made similar assumptions for Dimorphos because of 2 main reasons. One is that normally in a binary system, the moonlet is made of the same material as the parent parent asteroid. And there was also another reason, because if you see back in result 5, I was able to find a 20,000 kilometer long tail coming from the ejecta. And this huge tail length points to the fact that the asteroid had to be rubble-based. So here's the big question. Was the DART mission actually successful in moving Dimorphos? And the answer is yes. Because using the change in the mutual orbital period, I measured a 35-minute decrease after the impact. I applied Kepler's third law, which talks about the relationship between the orbital radius and orbital period of a celestial object. And using this, I saw that Dimorphos' orbit shifted by 40 meters after the impact, so the orbital radius reduced by 40 meters. And this pointed to the success of the DART mission. So for the first time, we have been able to deflect an asteroid as a planetary defense mission. And all of my results were validated by external sources such as NASA, and I received a close to 100% match in most of my results. One thing you might notice is the size is slightly off, 95%, and this is because NASA used the Draco camera, which was on board the DART mission, to get very close-up images of the asteroid to measure its size very accurately, while I simply relied on ground-based telescopes. So we both use different methods here. A few errors and limitations here in my algorithm. So all of my observations from robotic telescopes had a signal-to-noise ratio of at least 100, which means the uncertainty was less than 0.01 mag. And second, when finding the rotation and mutual orbital period, I relied on creating intervals to find the periodicity value, but I was using a simple home. I was using a simple home computer. So of course, I created maybe 5,000 intervals between each periodicity. So if I tried to create more intervals, I would have been able to get more accurate results. But for now, I have it up to 2 significant digits. And I have published my algorithms as open source on GitHub, and I've also shared some of my observations on the asteroid light curve database, so that others can also use these. And so on my GitHub, I've divided it into 4 steps training module, which others can replicate by simply adding their images from robotic telescopes and watching the algorithm work. And in addition, after I created my algorithm and tested it, it was great to receive requests from professional astronomers asking me to use my algorithm to analyze binary asteroids, apart from Dimorphos, where new data has just become available. So this was also a really cool opportunity to test my algorithm and see how well it works, and it was successful. So in conclusion, I was successfully able to create an algorithm to find the physical properties of the asteroids, in particular Dimorphos and Denis, and apply it in a real-world scenario to measure the effectiveness of DART mission. And my algorithm can be used by citizen scientists and backyard astronomers all around the world to analyze asteroids and speed up the rate of analysis, solving the original problem. In the future, I have several goals for my project. One of them is to expand my project to other missions apart from DART, from places like China and Japan, where they're targeting smaller asteroids, 30-meter asteroids. So it would be great to apply my algorithm there and see what research I can do. In addition, I would also like to expand my algorithm to perform shape modeling on asteroids. So this would involve taking radar observations of the asteroid and perform shape modeling. So now I'd like to step aside and talk about the Planetary Defense Conference. So the Planetary Defense Conference is a conference that's held every 2 years in different places all around the world. And this is a chance for delegates internationally to come together and to talk about the issue of planetary defense. And this was a great opportunity for me. Like, I attended the conference 2 years back in 2021, but unfortunately that was virtual because of the pandemic, so it wasn't the same experience. So this time it was held in Vienna in a United Nations building. So it was a great opportunity coming here in person for the first time. And here I would just like to talk about a few key points that I just saw during the 7-day conference. So I would like to start with the DART mission. And this was a well-awaited session because it marked a very big moment in history. First time we were able to test the kinetic impactor, and it was actually the first session and the first day. So almost the full DART team was present, and their team leads came and talked about various parts of the mission. They talked about their goals and what exactly they were trying to achieve, And the DART mission actually impacted almost near the epicenter of the asteroid, which is where it would get the highest accuracy. So that was pretty great. And they showed exactly where it impacted based on the images from the Draco camera. And also, they talked about the ejecta, which is a really fascinating part, because since Dimorphos was rubble-based, as it was impacted, loads of ejecta were crashed out of the asteroid. And this actually increased the momentum transfer efficiency, speeding up the asteroid even more than we had thought. Like the DART team, their original goal was to change the orbital period of the moonlet by at least 78 seconds, and they ended up changing it by 35 minutes. So second is the hypothetical asteroid threat scenario. So what would happen if an asteroid was actually on collision course with the Earth? What measures would we take? How would we deal with this? So during the Planetary Defense Conference, there was a hypothetical scenario where an asteroid were on collision course with the Earth. And this happened during one day. And across the hours of the day, they would reveal new information about the asteroid, about its size, how likely it is to impact the Earth, where would it impact, what type of damages was it likely to cause. And this was also a great opportunity for teams to come together and discuss across the day what measures would be taken, how much knowledge should go to the public, and so on. Third, deflection techniques. This is a really interesting part because if an asteroid were on collision course with the Earth, how would we make sure it is not impacted? How would we deflect it? And I'm going to talk a bit about this later, but I'll just briefly say that techniques can depend on the time. Techniques can depend on the amount of time we have. So if we have a long time before it's going to impact, if we have a short time, and also on the asteroid size. Next up, we have upcoming deflection missions. And this was really interesting because DART mission isn't the only missions that are happening right now. There are several others from countries like Japan and China. One of the interesting ones was the Hayabusa 2 Sharp, which is a mission which is aimed at smaller asteroids, about 30 meters. And there's going to be a flyby. They're going to actually go on an asteroid and rendezvous it to measure its physical properties and also gain more information about it. And this will help us analyze 30-meter asteroids and see what they have in similar. And this is a really important thing to do because it's these 30-meter asteroids, these smaller ones, which have the highest impact probability. Another one was the mission by China, which will do both a flyby and a rendezvous. And this is really interesting because first time they're going to go around an asteroid and take a few images, perform a few tests to get as much information as they can. And then they're heading on to another asteroid to actually land on it and try to take some samples. So fifth, impact and disaster management. So after an asteroid's impacted, how would we deal with this? It's very important to consider that while an asteroid might only impact one specific part of the Earth, the changes that will happen will be seen globally. There will be forest fires, there will be flooding, so many different things could happen. And we have seen here, like there's a forest fire in Quebec, and yet we're seeing it all the way here in Toronto. So you can see that measures need to be taken because global effects will be had. And sixth point, public education and communication. So it was great that this part was also mentioned at Planetary Defense Conference because normally in some conferences it's left out, but I think this is a really important part. And it's important to get the public excited about astronomy and planetary defense because these are intergenerational issues. And one of the ideas suggested, which I think were really interesting, is if we know the positions of all near-Earth asteroids, maybe instead of making it a huge, like if an asteroid is maybe coming very close to the Earth, we could create outreach events so that people can actually go outside, view this asteroid, and actually have fun while also learning more about planetary defense. So that was a really interesting idea. And this final point is the decision to act. So it's like the politics and the laws. So impacting an asteroid to deflect it isn't really a simple task. What happens if it fails? what happens if, one thing to take into account is that if an asteroid, we do not have enough warning time, sometimes we're forced to use nuclear weapons. And while the problem here is that there are several laws which go against using nuclear weapons in space, and nothing that's for nuclear weapons in special scenarios. So it's very hard to get around that. And again, if you fail, you will be in liable issues. So one or two main takeaways is asteroid deflection techniques. So how do we know what technique to use if an asteroid is on collision course? So there are four main scenarios that could happen, both based on how much time we have till the asteroid is going to impact us and their size. So if the asteroid is a smaller asteroid and they're going to impact us very soon, earlier in the next less than 5 years from now, then we definitely do not have time for deflection. And this is because deflection takes a long time. We might impact it slightly, and then over the years, its change will become much more evident. But 5 years really isn't enough time for that, especially because we have to deflect it at least 1 Earth's diameter. So we need enough time to do this. So since in this case you would not have enough time, you would have to rely on nuclear weapons. Similarly, if we have a large asteroid, but still again smaller warnings, you will need to use nuclear weapons. But let's say we have a longer warning time, above five years. Then what we would do is, if the asteroid is smaller in size, then you would rely on several methods you could use actually. One of them is gravitational tractor. So what this is if, okay, great. So one of the methods you could use is a gravitational tractor. This is basically bringing a spacecraft very close to the asteroid to try and slightly use the gravity of the spacecraft to deviate it off course. And eventually, after years, you will see the impact. Another solution is to just use a kinetic impactor, like we've seen in the DART mission. And if the asteroid, we had a still long warning time, but the asteroid was a bigger size, then here we would simply use several kinetic impactors to make sure that the asteroid was properly deflected. One last thing is, this is a small flowchart here, where I've described what we would do in the legalities if an asteroid were on impact course. So first thing to consider is where is it going to land? And does this region or country have a method of deflecting asteroids? And if they do, then that's great. They can go ahead and deflect it. But what if their deflection is not successful? So here the thing happens is, if it's completely not successful, it's still going to impact. Then this, again, can have global effects all around the world, which is something that no one wants to happen. And what if it's partially deflected? What if instead of landing in one region, it lands in the other? This will face, this country who launched the deflection mission could face huge liability issues. And this is actually another reason why no one really wants to be the one to launch the deflection technique, because the punishment is so high if it's unsuccessful. Another thing is, if it's successful, then that's great, and the asteroid will not be on course anymore. Apart from the very interesting talks, I also got a chance to talk to several people from all around the world and share my poster with them. And my poster was basically about the same project, measuring the physical properties of asteroids to use it to measure the effectiveness of NASA's DART mission deflection. So here I got to share my research with several members from the DART team, like Andy Rivkins and Christina Thomas. And this was a great opportunity for me to talk to them, especially Christina Thomas, because she's the one who I contacted at the beginning of my project to get advice on observing the asteroid. And in addition, I got the chance to talk to Elizabeth Dotto, who is part of the Hera mission, which will be coming towards the Dimorphos Dimorphos binary system in 2026 to measure the long-lasting effects of the mission. In addition, I also got to share my poster with people from all around the world who are actually responsible for this planetary defense step. And one of them is Matthew Daniels, who is at the White House. So he's involved in United States deflection techniques. Another one was Lindley Johnson, who is actually the only planetary defense officer at NASA. So it was great to talk to him and actually share my research with him. And finally is Ahmed Shaba, who is the Director General of Nigerian Space Agency. So it was great to see people from all around the globe here, and he actually participated in one of the panels that was held during the event. And so it was great to talk to him and share my research as well. Here comes the fun part, RASC. So of course I had to bring the RASC journal where I got my own publication in it to the conference. And I actually got to meet Paul Chodas, who is a RASC member. And it was great talking to him and about planetary defense and what we've both been doing. So this project, I took it to the Canada-wide Science Fair, and I was able to win the Best Project Award in Innovation at the 2023 year's fair. And I actually won the same award in 2022. So this made me the first back-to-back winner in over 33 years. Thank you. So this is the cool plaque that I was able to get. And in addition, I participated and won 5 other awards. And one of the best ones was the Excellence in Astronomy Award from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. So thank you, RASC. So I think this was in whole an amazing experience. Like just a bit of background on Canada-wide Science Fair. It started in my local Toronto Science Fair, where I was able to win a gold medal and 2 special awards, including a RASC Special Award. So again, thank you. And this led me to the Canada-wide Science Fair, where I was able to meet so many people over this week-long of fun events, judging, speeches. It was really a great opportunity. It was held in Edmonton, so maybe a bit of forest fires, but still, that was fine. So thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you very much for a great presentation and amazing feat. Congratulations, really, really well done. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Let's see, do we have some questions in the audience here? Yes, oh, sorry, there we are, okay. There.
Hi, Arushi. My name's Kathy, and I'm a newbie at astronomy. So I just wanted to say, first of all, that was an incredible project, and your presentation, even as a newbie, I was able to understand a lot of what you were telling us, so thank you for that. Is astronomy in your future, or you're not going to take this and go into finance or something, are you?
Thanks a lot for your encouragement, and definitely, I definitely see astronomy becoming something big in my future. Like I've been interested in astronomy for a long time now, 6 or 7 years, and I hope to keep this interest going forward, maybe study astrophysics or something related to astronomy in the future.
Okay, questions over here.
It's a long time since I've seen you here. You've grown a bit. What coding method were you using? What language were you using for your code?
I used Python for my full code and made use of like some astronomy libraries like AstroPy, AstroQuery, as well as like some plotting ones like Matplotlib.
Okay, great, thanks.
Rusi, great presentation. You are a genius.
Thank you.
Some of the things I don't understand also, but the way you explain, it was so nice, and thank you for a nice explanation. Just a question and curiosity. When you use a nuclear method, what are the risks and what is the legal implications? Like you said, it's less than 5 years. That's the only options, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And less than 5 years, you have no option but to use nuclear weapons. And there's several problems that can come up with this. First, when you look at the laws, there are 2 laws that heavily state that to not use nuclear weapons in space. And this is a really big problem because, of course, if an asteroid were on course, you would need to use nuclear weapons. But if, for example, you try and deflect or impact it, and then you're unsuccessful, then we have a nuclear weapon floating around in space, which is something that we definitely do not want to have. So it's definitely a big risk sending a nuclear impactor, and we should only do this if there's no other options left.
Just a follow-up question. So I think we know that radiation is there in space, and nuclear waste might have a radiation, which could be the major risk. So why there is a concern? There is already radiations, there is a high risk of radiation. What other consequences could be?
I think, forget the radiation part, that's definitely a big issue. But another thing is just having something floating in space where we're not sure where it goes, what it impacts, if it causes some other disturbances. And I think, as I said, nuclear weapons are heavily against using them in space. So it would be very hard to get into space, and if it's incorrect, and if it doesn't deflect properly, it'll be very hard to get it off space.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Hi, my name is Constant, and thank you for sharing your poster and the methodologies behind it. I'm actually curious in regards to the mathematics behind your work, and if you had the opportunity to explore any novel equations that came along to allow you to optimize your algorithm.
That's a great question. And actually, during the whole of my algorithm, I tried to limit it to only high school level maths. So this includes maybe logs, mean, standard deviation, mod, and so on. And yes, there are lots of places out there where they use heavily math tools, like for example, Fourier transformation, which I especially tried not to use and instead made my own approach, which used remainder, so modulus, instead. And this is because I would like my results, my algorithm, to be used by people all around the world without any expertise needed on this subject. So I tried to keep it as minimal as possible with the least computational requirements and mathematical requirements possible.
So will you, I understand that you want to be able to broaden your audience and allow people to use it, but on a side project, do you intend on just exploring it furthermore, just for fun, actually?
Yeah, perhaps that could be a good idea, like explore as much as I can, see whatever complex formulas are being used currently. That's definitely an interesting thing to do.
Okay. We have any questions online? All right, so here's the microphone for you.
So in order as they've come in, let me read both comments and questions. So the first is from Eric Briggs. Congratulations on winning the Canada-wide Science Fair. Next is from Phil Chow. What you've done is well beyond grade 8 student and teachers. Who did you have as a mentor for your project? I'm absolutely amazed by your work. So impressed.
Thank you. Yeah. While I did not have a specific mentor, I definitely got help from several people, whether it's like from robotic telescopes, which gave me a couple of hours of observation time, or people who just simply gave me advice as I went through my project. But I think like the main thing I tried to do here was self-learning. I also used several online forums if I had a specific query, but mostly it was just looking at tutorials and trying to find my way around things.
Next is from Guy Yanis. I'm not sure if it's just me, but everything I hear Arushi sharing her work, I'm speechless. This is just fantastic, and I agree. Also from Guy, Python is so good. Agreed. And let's see, he also says, there are great modules, libraries in AstroPy indeed. And questions I have, if I may. With Python, was there anything in the higher end of version 3, threads, anything like that that you've used like Python 3.9 specific, or would this work with any Python 3?
This should work with any Python 3. There's nothing specifically to the higher versions I used. I tried to keep it as basic as possible in that way. And actually, I created my whole code in Jupyter Notebooks and just copied it and published it on GitHub. So anyone with Python 3 or higher can use my code.
So I just looked at your Jupyter Notebooks while I was transcribing some of your work, and I was wondering if you'll be putting your slides in a notebook as well.
Perhaps that's actually quite a good idea to put like some figures around. Like I did reach some size limit, which is why I originally didn't put my results that I was getting in the algorithm. But perhaps opening a new one to put all my figures in would be a possible solution.
And one last thing, any chance you'll be putting out an EPUB with more detail as to, I don't like using the word journey, but I'll use it, your journey to get to the end of this project. And next.
Yeah, for my journey, while I don't have much documented yet, I have my project board, which I can share the link later, where I show basically all my steps in a lot of detail. And for the future, while I definitely have a lot of routes that I could take, as I mentioned before, maybe something expanding my algorithm for other space missions or simply to find the shape modeling of asteroids. And I think I definitely want to continue in this route of astronomy in the future.
Things that literally just came to mind for me. Instead of using a nuclear weapon, do your calculations or algorithms ever allow for something like a solar sail that you can project its effectiveness?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Using a solar sail instead of a nuclear weapon to deflect. Does calculations or algorithms allow for this sort of thing?
Well, my algorithms definitely allow for any sort of thing because you can just add your images, and then you can get the physical properties, and you can repeat this for maybe before impact as well and after impact, and try to measure the physical changes in the physical properties. So my algorithm would work with any deflection technique.
My last question is, using Japanese radar data, do you expect to be a large number of changes in your algorithm? Or do you expect it to be pretty close to what you've already done? Just your best guess.
The radar is going to be used for shape modeling, which is something I haven't done yet. But for the other physical properties, my results were very closely validated and almost 100% accuracy. So I don't think they can be improved by too much.
Thank you.
So unless there are any more questions, I think we'll move on to, first of all, thanks again, Arushi. We look forward to seeing you back here with some more amazing stuff for me. All right, and have we gone to fun facts, or fun facts are coming up? No, we're gonna go straight to our next, not really a presentation, more of an extended announcement. Ed Treyes will tell us about a new location for city star parties. So we'll get his presentation up in a second. And
a couple of members of council, myself and Lucy Winicki, basically, who's the secretary, have been trying to set up and see how it works. So it's something we see whether it interests the members of the Toronto Centre and maybe have a little bit of extra activity. So what we've done is determined that we're going to try to trial a alternate, well, actually additional city star party. And we went out and did some investigation. So we found a West End alternative to Bayview Village, which will still continue. So this is just a test, and it will be an addition. Oops, I hit the wrong button apparently. Yep, okay. All right, so actually, obviously I went one, there we go. So we went out and checked some stuff in kind of south of Etobicoke, and we decided that Long Branch Park, which is a fairly small local park, would be a fairly good location. As you can see, it's right down there on the lake, and this is Lakeshore Boulevard, and basically the 427 is somewhere up here, the Gardner is somewhere up here, and the QEW is somewhere up there. So there's decent access to drive there. If you're in the West End, obviously if you're in Pickering, wouldn't be so great. And it's even reasonably accessible by public transit, although obviously you wouldn't drag your 8-inch Newtonian on a German mount through transit, because I think that would be a little bit too much. The park itself is right on the lake, so we have an almost 180-degree view over the lake, so a perfect horizon to the south. There are no trees or lights in the park, so the trees that you see in that picture, which I took yesterday, so that's a very recent picture, are actually before where we would set up. We would set up beyond them. You can just about see, well, it's kind of hard to see, and I got the wrong angle. There's a little gazebo there, and we'd be beyond that gazebo. There's solid ground all in there. It was just rebuilt. There's a paved path if you want to roll your equipment out to there. There's a picnic table, at least one of them there, if you have a tabletop tripod. And the curbside parking is basically right behind where I took that picture. The only thing to note is the parking sometimes gets taken up because it's just a roadside, but we will deal with that if we have to, like unload your equipment and just park a little ways down the street. There's plenty of parking, street-side parking in the area. So we're also going to shoot for Saturday or Sunday evening. Because it's an alternate, we'll try different dates and different days of the week. I'm thinking it would be good to hold the first couple of them in July and August if we can, to actually get it rolling, because that way you'll get the advantage of seeing Scorpius and Sagittarius right over the lake, because that's the summer constellations before it kind of gets a little bit more boring to the south in the fall. The exact dates are to be determined. These are some ideas just looking at the new moon calendar, but we haven't firmed them up. And in August, of course, the Perseid parties will be probably the week prior to that. We hope to have more to announce at the next RAN. Like I said, this is just very quick, just giving everyone a heads up. I know we have an audience here and online, so just to ask you to stay tuned. We'll also announce on the forum and hopefully get our social media to work. So it's basically stay tuned. And that's pretty much it.
Just any questions for Ed before he goes about this trial star party location? No? Okay, very good. Thank you, Ed. All right, so let's take care of announcements tonight with our president, Tom Wooten. And here he comes.
Much. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much to our wonderful speakers. Let's get the announcements rolling. So, as we've said earlier, this has been one of our recreational astronomy nights. It's one of two types of meetings that we have. However, our speakers' nights are on hiatus for the summer and will resume in September. If you're joining us live on YouTube, please say hello. In the chat, please enter some questions for the presenters. If you're a new member, please introduce yourself. And if you're coming to us from far, far away, please let us know where you're from. So our next recreational astronomy night will be both here and online on the 5th of July, 7:30 p.m. Andy Beaton will be discussing the sky this month. Matteo Stati will be discussing the mystery of the Marsh telescope, and Arnold Brody will have a topic regarding the Artemis missions. Exact title is still TBA. And as Paul Markov has already mentioned, please, if you've got something you'd like to present, drop him a line. And like I said, our speaker nights are over for the summer. We'll see you in September. So coming up, we've got Millennium Square on Friday, the 23rd of June, from 7 p.m. to midnight, free public stargazing. Please come on out, take a look at the moon and stars through our telescopes that we will provide, and then check out some of the astronomy literature we have. And if you have your own telescope, bring it along, and we'll help you set it up and aim it at the moon. We're still being a little cautious regarding COVID. We're please asking folks to please use hand disinfectant, and we're still recommending mask wearing. We do have a go, no-go decision on our website that will be posted the day of the event before you head out. So coming up at the DDO, on Saturday, the 24th of June at 10 p.m., and I apologize, I'm going to mangle this. Dr. Junwoo Huang will be discussing a camera for the dark universe. There is a registration fee before younger than 14 years old, a fee of $15.69, and for older than 15 years, $17.72. You can register online. The links can be found at rascto.ca. I regret to announce that the Sunday sun gazing event on the 25th has already been sold out. However, the DDO is having another Bring Your Own Binoculars event on the first clear night from June 26th to the 30th. So the first clear night of that week. No registration required, just show. Now, City Star parties, Ed has mentioned about the trial event that's going on. Our ongoing star party is at Bayview Village Park, the first clear night of the week of June 26th to the 29th, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., except Wednesday. So where it's the first clear night, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. Again, please check our website for our go or no-go decision based on the weather. One thing that I have neglected to put in was an announcement slide. Solar observing will be starting up again here at the Ontario Science Centre. This Saturday, starting at 10 a.m., we will have telescopes out front here at the telescape. Please come and enjoy. Now, what's going on at our club observatory at the CAO up near Blue Mountain? Operations are pretty much back to pre-pandemic, with a couple of exceptions. We're asking a max of 2 unrelated persons per bedroom who mutually agree to share the room, and masking in common areas is encouraged, but as preferred by those in attendance. Now, public outreach and favorable moon phase supervised weekends throughout the summer and fall have resumed. The first weekend with a supervisor will be the weekend after Canada Day. Please take a look online at, for any details at our CAO bookings page on our website. So, a few things for our job board. Denis has already talked about whether we need some testers for the new website. If you've ever wanted to break a website, this is your opportunity. I'm being a bit facetious here, but we do want to put this thing through. Unbreakable. Okay, folks, that was a challenge. We have to make a programmer cry. We're also looking for an education and public outreach chair, a volunteer committee chair, and a marketing committee chair, as well as some committee members. And always the education and public outreach committee is always looking for additional help, as well as telescope camera operators. Just a reminder that if you would like to volunteer, you have to be a member. Please drop me a note at president@rasto.ca if you'd like to help out. Brief plug here for the joys of RASC membership. You can renew, if you like what you've seen here and would like to join us, you can renew or sign up for the first time online at secure.rasc.ca, not RASC.to. Our membership is handled through the national office. Gift memberships are also available. Contact the national office at mempub@rasc.ca. Now for what some consider the most important part of the night, the meeting after the meeting. Folks here in the audience, I invite you to join us at the Granite Brew Pub at 245 Eglinton Avenue East, southeast corner of Eglinton and Mount Pleasant. There's free underground parking, and we are usually in the front room. And for everybody else who will and won't be joining us, I'd like to wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Please follow us on all the forms of social media that we've got listed here. If you're watching us live on YouTube, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Be safe and keep looking up. Good night, everybody.